So, the funny thing is that each time I try to follow a script, I actually fail. Like, I made this video once and I did not follow, and I followed the script. I bumbled through it. The laptop died. So right now I'm here. The sunlight has gone. I have done a lot to set these lights. Like, this is a very delicate balance. If one light goes off now like this, it will expose all of my secrets. However, I actually got it done and I think this looks good. I am confident enough now to start this book review. So, hi there. My name is Shama Godos and welcome to the book replay. No long talk today. We are going to be reviewing The Incredible Dreams of Garba Dakaskus, or Garba Dakaskus. See, this book has suffered me. I'm going to tell you people the truth. This book has stressed my life. When people were saying that this book was confusing, I did not understand why they were saying it was confusing. I don't think it's confusing. I think The Incredible Dreams of Garba Dakaskus is quite straightforward. You just have to read it multiple times. That is just... that is it. Because the first time I read the book, I was just bamboozled by what Sidi was doing. Oh my God, he just drops a word, cantankerous, and I'm like, the geek in me is busy just twisting inside. And then I'm done with the book and I'm like, oh my God, I know what happens. And then I make VNs. I'm talking about, oh, like, so this is what's happening, this is what's happening. And then time to review the book. And let me just give it a new read. And I read it again. Everything just simply changes for me. You know what happens whenever you want to review a book? The secret to reviewing books is reading books multiple times. I am a natural reader. If I read a book and I enjoy it, best believe I am going to read it again. It's not as if I'm not looking for new stories, but I like to go deeper into old stories. That is why I'm actually a book reviewer that does things that are up to like 40 minutes. You see this book, reading it once is not enough. Reading it twice is not enough. The third time you are reading this book, please get pen and paper and start writing things down because there's a lot to glean. This is a masterpiece. It is too early to call it a classic, but I'm ready to risk my professional opinion on the fact that this is a classic. This thing should be winning an award. It's not a book, it's a thing. Like, there's something inside here. There's something that was done here. Like, somebody cooked smoky jollof. Anyway, also I called it The Incredible Dreams of Garba Dakaskus is on the 2025 long list for the Dublin Literary Award. We need to win this thing because I think it deserves a prize, at least. Let's get into this book. One of the things that The Incredible Dreams of Garba Dakaskus tells me about the art of writing, reviewing books is quite different from how you review film. Like, when I was reviewing film, all I had to do was just maybe like tackle the elements of fiction, tackle the quality of writing, consistency of characters, act 1, act 2, act 3, how cohesive it was, how it made people feel, what was the viewing experience like, and all of that. With movies, you can do that for a wide variety of films. Most films, especially American films, come in sort of like the same container. They are trying to hit the same spots just in different topics and in different ways. However, when it comes to books, every book is a different beast. Stepping into reviewing any book at this point, I do not know what format I'm going to use. I actually do not know how the review is going to look like. All I know is that I'm going to have the book and I'm going to look at the camera and I'm going to talk about everything inside the book. There are going to be different containers, there are going to be different reviews. And why books are like that is because just the fact that we are interacting with the substance of language, that's we are interacting with words itself, that lends a lot of flexibility to what we can do, to what we can make people imagine. Everybody reading a book is not seeing it the same way. That is the joy of talking about books, because the way it is shaped in my head is quite different from the way it is shaped in your head. And as long as we're not judging each other, we both have a lot to learn about the book, about the art form of writing, and then about each other. Books are really, really communal. That flexibility of language is what Umar Sidi Abubakar takes full advantage of when he's writing this book. Because trust me, you cannot do this with any other art form. Every other art form, let's say something like spoken word, I mean, there's already a voice for you to hang on to. There's already something concrete. With this book, he manages to unhook us from the story, hook us right where he wants to hook us, and unhook us again. There are several parts of this story where you are just floating. This book is so strange and it's so well done that no reading is the same. The metafictive elements of this book elevates the story to another level. So, like, I would heap as much praise as I can upon this book before I start talking about it, because, like I said, I don't know where this review will go, to be honest. I really don't know where this review will go. But, let's just start the review. Before we move on, let me just define metafiction. So metafiction is a literary style that emphasizes its narrative, usually, and it reminds you, the reader, that you're reading a fictional work by stressing those elements of fiction and talking about them as if, it's outside itself. So you find several things in, like, metafictive stories. You see metafiction first discussing itself, as I've said. you see authors appearing as characters, something that was done here, stories and stories. Sometimes the character breaks the fourth wall and starts to talk to us, something that was liberal here, so liberal. In fact, the first time he breaks the fourth wall, you're like, oh, why are you talking to me? And then after a while, you want him to talk to you because he has a lot to say. Garba Dakaskus has a lot to say. I was sitting in a panel and somebody said the plot is thin. And I'm like, no. I get why you say the plot is thin because the book seems not to focus on the plot. Like the book treats the plot as if it's not very, very important. But I can tell you that this is one of the fattest plots I've seen. This is 1,000 years of story. 1,000 years of story from the 11th century BC. There is everything inside this book. There's love, there's lust, there's battle, there's blood, there's heroism, there's espionage, there's action, there's crime. The book doesn't start and end the way most stories start because most stories, we start from the beginning and we know how we are getting to the end. This book actually starts from the beginning and gets to the end because basically it starts from a room, character leaves that room, and the character ends up somewhere else. So that is kind of like how it starts and it ends. But between when the character leaves the room and goes to that somewhere else, we experience a myriad of lifetimes. This book chronicles everything about the search for a book of great power. The name of this book is The Guide to the Secrets of the Alphabet and Other Matters Related to the Arrangement of Letters in the Construction of Words and Sentences. Also, Text of the Parrot by Al-Jujani, translated from Ajami by Garba Dakaskus. The thing about the Guide to the Secret of the Alphabet is that it grants you or it teaches you the ability to extract knowledge from any text by just looking at the first letters. So basically, if I wanted to read this book and I had studied like the secrets of the alphabet, I would just open it, read those first letters, and I know everything in this book. A very, very handy ability for somebody who is a creature of knowledge to have. If I had that ability, 90,000 books a year now. When I think about like the Guide to the Secret of the Alphabet, I think of Umar Sidi and how he's a nerd, and I'm like, yeah, this is a nerd's wet dream. This is a literary nerd's wet dream because we want to read everything in the world as literary nerds, but we just don't have the time. There's work, there's school, there's hair to be done, there's plants to buy, there's a shelf to make for this whole place. So obviously, we would like that power. Incredible Dreams of Garba Dakaskus chronicles how this book was passed from man to man, how it was sought after by rulers, how it caused clashes between armies, how it caused a city to be razed down, just to even protect it. Underground organizations that have existed for 1,000 years were created. In the world of this book, knowledge is power and knowledge is also currency. They take knowledge to very, very religious levels. The first time you are reading it, you can rush through it. Just go through it the way you normally read a book. Let it blow your mind. Let it make you wonder. Let it make you drop it and pick it up again. Whatever you need to do, finish it. Maybe after like 2 or 3 days, pick it up and read it again. You'd see the wonders that will happen inside your head. This is the short review for those of us that, cannot go past 10 minutes. We're heading into the long review now. If you're a writer, stick around because I am going to be giving a lot of free game. Let's talk about the author. Now, Umar Sidi is a contemporary Nigerian poet and writer known for experimental poetry and his, genre blending work. His notable book, The Poet of Dust, combines poetry, prose, and philosophical reflection. His second work, Like Butterflies Scattered by Art Rascals, I have it here, challenges creatives in their creative world. A few poems I've read, that's what I've gotten. I know that if I go and read it now like this, I'll probably come here now, my mind will be blown and I'll just be geeking out. But what I have finished is Poet of Dust. In fact, I did not used to read poetry before, but I read The Poet of Dust and it just unlocked poetry for me. It affected my life so powerfully that the first book I ever reviewed on this channel was The Poet of Dust. The Poet of Dust is literally what made me start the book replay. Umar Sidi incorporates elements of Hausa literature and Islamic mysticism in his works. Now that he has ventured into prose with The Incredible Dreams of Garba Dakaskus, it is as genre blending as any other of his works. He's also a very powerful performance poet. I watched him at Ake and I love his very strong voice. It is very, very compelling. His words on a page translate seamlessly into physical performances. When I read CD, I can hear his powerful voice in the middle of an auditorium, and I am like 76 seats away, yet his voice is cutting through to me like a knife going through spider webs.
Al-Arshad, what is the meaning of the letter Jim? Jim, Jamil, the beautiful face of the apple, mermaids, maidens of light, 9 maidens feeding from a tray of aboriginal smiles.
I am a huge fan, in case you cannot tell. Now imagine taking that voice that has been able to crack my echo chamber of stories and then putting it into prose. Ear magnet. Let's talk about the cover. So the first cover of this book that I saw was at Kaba Fest. It was the yellow cover. I didn't buy the book then. Once I saw this cover, I was like, this is what I will buy. So I'm so happy that this cover was changed. This cover eats. Deep yellow cover just felt like it did not understand the assignment. It is not really a bad cover. It's also fine. It's very eye-catchy. But you see this cover with its deep night sky blue background, all of the symbolism, this yellow framing. I think they are Islamic forms. This perfectly captures the mysticism and fantasy inside this book. Like, I look at these symbols and I'm like, this thing is inspired by something ancient. I have not studied Islam or, the Middle Eastern culture and Sufism and, all of the things that Sidi has been asking me to read to understand what is here. But I know that it is very cohesive with what happens in this book, because when I read the book and I came back and I looked at the cover, I was like, I get it now. This font is something that you can find in a grimoire. Like, I feel as if I read anything written with this font, all of my furniture in this house will start floating. This cover is a 6/5. You cannot get a better cover for this book than this, unless CD somehow drops a sequel. And maybe the sequel sort of expands the world further than this. The icons on this cover, they are symmetrical. Like, there's one here, there's one here. They are not the same. They feel like polar opposites. So, of course, this skull feels like this is death and then this is love. They are opposites in a sense. We are looking at a serpent and knife. So I see the serpent as, something that brought knowledge, and violence, something that actually destroys knowledge. We have like an hourglass and a scroll. We have like a key and a dove. And then we have the eye, which of course says all-seeing eye. So these little symbolisms also serve to like just make like this thing explode. Let's go past the cover. Let's talk about the content. If I were to hazard a premise for this novel, I will say the premise of this novel is that the search for knowledge corrupts. Now, knowing that knowledge is power, it can also mean that the search for power corrupts. In trying to find power, in trying to find the guide to the secrets of the alphabet, we have siblings betraying siblings, we have armies destroying cities, we have people harvesting organs. Life just feels generally unsafe if you are in any way connected to the guide of the secrets of the alphabet. They will come for you because people will go to any length to get that. That's the premise I am going with. Before I start this review, I would like to talk about world building. So in my video for Masobi Books, that's the Who is Garba Dakaskus challenge, I attempted to tell everybody who Garba Dakaskus was, and I was so caught up in the magic of this book that I so erroneously believed that this book could possess a person. This book cannot possess you, the reader, because one of the lines I said was that if you are reading this book, you are Garba Dakaskus. I am wrong. If you're reading this book, you're not Garba Dakaskus. If you're reading this book, you're just going to run mad. That's basically what you're going to do. The idea of that review was that if you are beholding Garba Dakaskus' dreams, Garba Dakaskus exists within you and starts to dream. All right, correct that and say that the only person that Garba Dakaskus, the character, the narrator, was able to possess was the author in the book, and the author wrote the book. So that was my mistake. Here's the thing about the world building of this book. Knowledge or knowing is like the grand god of everything. I find it hard that there was no deity attached to the idea of knowledge, because I so badly wanted to invent a god of knowledge inside this place, because I felt like the book needed it, to just give some consciousness to like some of the crazy things that were happening here. But even that is not even really needed. So in this world, knowledge is the grand god of everything. This world respects knowledge up to like religious levels. Like, the more you know, the higher your value across like almost every aspect of life then. And then in this world, knowledge is transmissible. If you learn the guide to the secret of the alphabet, if you read the book, it will allow you to divine all of the knowledge in a book by examining the first letter. So it's like you are downloading it. It's like you're absorbing a book by opening it and touching the first letter. And whoever is holding the book seems to be able to access knowledge, like have access to like vast amounts of knowledge, because it's evident in the way the narrator pushes the story and depends on several books to explain several phenomena and tell stories. What the narrator even does when he's telling us is that he jumps from knowledge in books to books to like sort of like progress the story and to explain his points. There's also the skill of retreating letters, where an author is able to extract information from any reader that reads his scroll, and a reader is able to extract information from the author if they know more than the author. It's very fantastical and I love it. There is no entity that doesn't have use for knowledge. Birds, monkeys, man, tigers, all of them live together in the time of the caliph, and they have equal access to knowledge and they both respect knowledge. Caliph is a great guy. All of these species are even employed in the Caliph's mission to find the guide to the secret of the alphabet, as we see in this book. So yeah, this is like some of the core things you need to know about the world building. And there's more, but we don't have much time. Let's talk about the structure of this book, because I've defined what narrative is. Narrative is, how a story is technically written. This book is structured in 5 books. Just like the Madhouse being structured in 5 characters, this novel is structured in 5 parts. So first, there is the Book of Mysterious Narrations, which is the longest one of all. It details the 11th century story of the Caliph. We have Memoirs of Al-Sudani, which details the story of Al-Quti. There is the Guide of the Secret of the Alphabet, which is the 3rd book, which no mortal eye can behold because it will blind you. And then there's the Book of Sorcery and Mysterious Allusions, which is just a rambling of the consciousness that is the guide to the secret of the alphabet. Because in this world, books are also conscious and they communicate with each other. I wasn't wrong about that. I'm so happy. In the Book of Sorcery and Mysterious Allusions, the guide to the secret of the alphabet also talks about this book, and is the ramblings of that. We are treated to an entire spiel where it rails against what Preet has done and all of that. In the Book of Injurious Disclosures, we see where Garba Dakaskus came from and how he journeyed into his author's mind. These are what we get in these 5 books. And at first glance, it seems like these 5 books are disconnected. It seems like we are just reaching into different stories and we are just in for a mesmeric ride. People say that this is a confusing river. There's nothing confusing about this book. You just simply have to read it again because there's actually a plot, and the plot is insane. And I love this plot so much. So in my script, I have actually expanded on what happened inside these books. And when we head into where we're talking about plots, we're going to do that. So now I do not think that it is ethical to gist us everything that happened in the plot, because I think this book needs to hang around in the world for a while before I talk about plots. Even though I created like a whole chronological timeline to everything that happens in this book. But what I need everybody to know is that the Guide to the Secret of Alphabets that was written by Al-Juzjani is just the first time that this guide to the secret of the alphabet was actually written. It existed as a metal slate that has the ability to affect people. It was the marksman of Damascus in the story that rambled it out, and Al-Juzjani listened to his ramblings, hid somewhere for 40 days, and came out with the first written copy of the Guide to the Secret of the Alphabet. And the metal slate still exists alongside that copy. So that is one of the things you need to know about the plot. The plot basically covers the origins of the madman of Damascus. It covers the origins of Al-Juzjani. It talks about the fall of Cordoba, what the search for this guide did in the world, what the Caliph who was looking for this book did. It basically covers the events of the lives of the people who held on to this book. I actually came here ready to discuss all of the plots, but in looking at this book, I realized that you people have to really find it and piece it for yourself. One of the joys I got in reading this book is that, and it gave me great pleasure when I finally got the plot down. I'm actually make a different section if I'm kind enough where I write about this plot, and everything. So now for style, you see this writing voice eggs you on. Like, it's very, very compelling. What he does is that he peppers the writing with strong words that do not keep you in one mental space at the same time. So it feels like you are experiencing a lot of change. Like, I think this is a technique that poets use to control time and, attention in their work. Because when you can manipulate syllables and then you have the vocabulary to use words as you see fit, you can affect how a reader perceives your book. You can affect how your book is paced. It's not just by the event. Sidi doesn't just pace this story by progressing from event to event. He paces the story by manipulating language itself. By drifting from story to other stories. There's a way he controls your time. He really engages several levels of your reading. When he drops words like cantankerous, injurious, exclusions, vocation, like not easy words that you can find, you are actually transported to a different world. The specificity of his vocabulary, the polysyllabic nature of the words that he uses are very, 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 very useful in doing this thing that he does. Now, when it comes to the narration, that's the story progression, I will call it multi-threading at its finest, because it seems as if we are vacillating between stories and he's telling them out of order. If you actually calm down and you follow how Garba Dakaskus thinks, how he processes information, being the fact that he knows a lot, you'll be able to find that common thread. When I say multi-threaded, I mean he starts a story and he stops it somewhere and he jumps to another story. Now, he doesn't just jump to another story, he jumps to a different layer of the story. He may start at the surface level layer of a particular story, and then from there he moves into maybe a deeper part of a story, and then he goes to another story and just name drops a character, and then he comes back to the first story that you are reading, and then he continues it. The story of the Caliph is actually told about 5 different times at different levels. He scatters the chronology. We learn about the Caliph's origins. We kind of learn about what happens to the Caliph at the end. Then we come down to the middle and learn what happened from different perspectives. Several perspectives are employed to tell the story. Garba Dakaskus being able to shift between several forms of knowledge. Sometimes it feels as if he is eavesdropping on what is happening in the world. But don't forget that this was a time of great knowledge. You had people journaling, you had court scribes just writing regular things that are just happening. And Garba Dakaskus being able to extract knowledge and connect with knowledge is definitely going to have a lot of this in his head, and he's going to have trouble finding out which one is important. We can see him struggle with events even inside the book. So all of it is just a very, very cohesive thing that CD does, and I'm like, bro, it doesn't leave you hanging. It's actually a thrill. It's actually very thrilling to be able to piece this. Even the throwaway lines that we think do not matter actually matter. The books that CD just mentions, because books are used as plot devices here, so those books that he uses, that he mentions, actually serve to just push the plot forward. It's actually a very wonderful technique, because I can see how I can use those books to keep them as placeholders for my writing. I could just tell you something where, and I'll be like, oh, it is written in this book and it happened so and so and so and so. Even the Bible does it when it says, are all of this not recorded in the annals of King of Kings? I think one of the things I like with this book is that it actually feels as if I'm reading something religious, collection of religious texts that have actually been gathered to present a story a particular way. I think that's one thing that I like about this book too. Sometimes I'm looking at this book and I'm like, I wish I'd done it first. The last time I encountered such a style, such a very weird and bizarre book like this was when I was reading Lincoln in the Bardo, the book that won the 2010 Booker's Prize. That was a trip. I have not finished it, and I'm still piecing up what happened. But the incredible thing of Garba Dakaskus does what Lincoln in the Bardo did in a much neater way and a very easy way that you can follow. Let's move on to the characters. So now there are several characters inside this story, but I'll just talk about the important ones. That's the ones who handle the guide to the secret of the alphabet. So we start from the Caliph. The Caliph is a ruler who deploys all of his resources to find the guide. He's a very, very, very great lover of knowledge. His origin story happens when he discovers that seeking the truth is like the secret to life, and then that's when he starts his journey towards seeking knowledge. When he becomes Caliph, he employs everything he needs to find guys the secret of the alphabet. He even has a place for knowledge, a scriptorium called the House of the Alphabet, that actually made a bunch of people run mad because of the amount of things they were seeing there. He also learns how to speak the language of the birds and was able to gain knowledge from there. In his kingdom, every living thing lived in peace. As the book even says, that it will not be strange for you to find tiger lovers taking a leisurely stroll in the park. He makes a utopia. One of the things that I'll say he stands for is that whenever knowledge flourishes, we get, utopia, kind of understand our differences better. There's some sort of unity going on there. Whenever knowledge flourishes freely and knowledge is chased at first, I guess that would be the premise of the Caliph story. Ba is one of the letters that were sent to hunt for the guide to the secret of the alphabet. By all the news that we hear about Ba, he finds it and it actually changes his appearance. Ba just becomes this pure vessel of knowledge. And of course, he's viciously haunted by the people who are looking for the guide to this alphabet. He ends up being the spirit of the guide, appearing whenever the guide is transferred. Al-Jujani is a young man from Jujan who falls in love with the Caliph's sister, but things will not go his way and he flees the city and goes to Damascus, where he listens to the ramblings of the Max Madman of Damascus, and he writes the first scroll that is the guide to the secret of the alphabet Garba Dakaskus is being hunted for. And then there's Al-Quti, who receives the metal slate that is the guide itself under his pillow. And of course, enemies come after him, so he has to escape to Timbuktu. He ends up traveling farther than he intended to travel. Then Malam Agali, he receives the guide from Al-Kuti upon Al-Kuti's death, and he's one of the first people that successfully hid the guide from everywhere in Sokoto, and that is how the guide ends up in the Yandoto corpus, and that is how he ends up in possession of Garba Dakaskus or in proximity to that family. These are the characters that you need to know about, and there's several more that are very interesting, but I think this should give you like a hand-holding for you to understand what's going on. So what are the themes inside this book? The book tackles so much themes, but one of the most important ones is that the story does very well in describing just how powerful knowledge is, in portraying what knowledge can do and what the hatred of knowledge can destroy. Whenever ideas are celebrated, it sort of like pushes us towards our higher self. Okay, so while I was editing this, Nana Sule shared a piece that she published in the NWF Journal, A Case for Letters in the Incredible Dreams of Garba Dakaskus, and I think it's something that you would want to see. So I will put the link in the description and you can read it. I learned a lot from it, and I'm just going to add a bit from it into this review. And what I made me understand is that letters that were actually sent out to hunt for the guys' secret of the alphabet were Almajere, and I do not have enough information about that, but I think it's something that is worth exploring. So if you've read the book and you have anything to add about that, I am active. Come to my comments, hit me up on social media, and just teach me about the Almajere system, because I'd like to understand how he was able to incorporate that inside this and just make it very seamless. So yeah, those are the themes of it. I like to talk about literary discourse, so this is the part where I teach. In this novel, books are used as narrative devices. Since we can extract knowledge from books immediately, it is very, very, very easy for books to be narrative devices. And this is like very heavy work. If it was like written in another way, we will need like at least 7 parts to really flesh out the story. Because when we get down to the interaction day by day level of the stories, there is so much that we need to build. When it comes to the pacing, CD rearranges its events and it becomes like an ongoing jigsaw. One of the pleasures of reading this book is the rearrangement and finally seeing the full picture of what's happened, and that satisfaction. And the pacing in this book, as I've said, is sort of like created first by the revelation of the main plot points to you and how he's able to keep track of the multiple stories he has started and is able to push them at the right time. The pacing boils. This book actually like sweeps you with its own currents. Pass mark 70/60. Extra points. This book oversells itself. What CD has done with this book really is that he has created a style that is like a perfect container. Anybody who knows their story very well can just pour their story inside. The way the story was written, it bellies a much wider world that you can set like any saga in. Like inside this book, I can see sequels, I can see spin-offs, I can see several seasons of a show from it. And I want to say that, please, FX and Apple TV, people should come and read this thing. Come and pick it up, please. And when you pick it up, put me inside the team. I'm calling it now that this is going to be a fantastic TV series, to be honest. So please, I called it first too. I can bet you that this novel is going to have copycats by the time that we understand what makes it tick. Copycat is me. I am copycat. By the time I was done writing my review, all I wanted to do was just like write a sequel, because there are so many stories inside here that you can take. There's so much lore. If CD had used like basic and simple English here, it would have been a flaccid effort at this style. But the audaciousness of his vocabulary in the text matches the boisterity of the style. Meet any of those is this thing. It just really keeps me up. It's like drugs, to be honest. Like it just really resets your mind and the book takes control. Now, this was my book of the year for last year. Because last year I attended like a writing workshop, the Lorway writing workshop, and it gave me like a deeper understanding of the elements of fiction. And that is why like I'm able to talk about this book the way I'm talking about it. Like this book could not have met me at a more prepared time. I like what like this book has done for Nigerian literature, and I think that writers can drink from his boldness to write their own stories like in the most experimental fashion that they can. Like the way the market received The Incredible Dreams of Garba Dakaskus, even the way I received this book has been pretty impressive. And although a lot of people may not understand the level of literature as a lot of us understand it, but I like that they are able to appreciate the sheer spectacle that this book creates. So yeah, this book actually has everything for everybody. If you are like a literary geek and you just want to talk about the literary elements of fiction, I just want to read good writing. If you want to read a book that will blow your mind, a story that you will enjoy, a story that is a mystery, is a thriller, is action-packed, and is literary fiction all in one, I would recommend The Incredible Dreams of Garba Dakaskus to you. Where can you find it? You can find it at Roving Heights. You can talk to Masobi at their store and they can get you one. This will be the end of the review. I tried my best not to spoil this book because So how do I even close this review? First, I want to thank our sponsors that, give us new gear, because I know that you guys have noticed that the camera is different now. So yeah, it's a nice little webcam that, I received. Thank God. Thank God for sponsors. So without sponsors, you're for day. I think it's like 2 weeks to the beginning of the Leopard House Fiction Workshop. You guys know that I'm always going to plug it at the end of the videos. What is the Leopard House Fiction Workshop? It is a workshop where writers can come and we will learn about the elements of fiction, see how they are put in practice, and that will enable you to be able to, write your stories better and appreciate fiction better if, you want to do stuff like book reviews or you want to actually write your novel. We have a workshop where we will look at your stories and we'll also teach. Our goal is to help a lot of writers get the story that is in their head onto the page. So the course is going to run for 10 weeks from January to the beginning of April. You meet other writers, you discuss with them. We'll be vulnerable to our stories. If you're interested, hit me in the comments below, hit my Instagram, send me an email. I'll leave all of that in the description and I can tell you more about the workshop, can tell you how you can sign up and how you can get in there. So yeah, that is the Leopard House Workshop. The last thing I want to say is that this has also been adopted to our workshop in the Leopard House. Of course, we're actually going to be discussing more and more about the elements of fiction. We're going to be teaching from this. So if you are going to join the Leopard House Workshop, at some point, you're going to have to read this. I'm going to talk about it in class. I want to thank you so much for sticking for another long review. Thank you so much for having a long attention span. And I hope that you have left with something added to your knowledge and something that you're never going to forget, something that has improved your writing, your appreciation for literature, or just your ability to extract stuff from text. I just hope that this has done what the Guide to the Secret of the Alphabet does for people. So, see, I'm in the law now. So anyway, thank you everyone for sticking around. Thank you so much, Umar Sidi Abubakar, for writing this book. You are appreciated and you are loved. So yeah, until the next book, which at this point, I really don't know the next thing we're going to read. It might be the Creation of Half-Broken People, or we might be reviewing Ben Okri's The Famished Road. I don't know, but yeah, it will be one of that. And then after that, we're just going to go and review some light work, because all these heavy works, they mess with my feelings, to be really honest. It's been fun hanging out with you guys. I hope it has been fun hanging out with me. I am Shama, and The Incredible Dreams of Garba Dakaskus has been replayed. Thank you.